The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz, and we've got people on the show tonight that I think only one of them has been here in the past, and it was in a different capacity. So tonight we're going to be talking about the League of Women Voters, what it is, what it does, and why you should be involved. So to my left is Margie Davies. She's the current president of the League of Women Voters of Winnebago County.
Yes.
Do I have the name correct?
You do.
All right. Marvelous. And then we've got Susan Curran
Yes.
to my right, and to her right is Kathy Propp. So, and you guys are all members.
Yes.
Were any of you on the board in the past? I know you were, Susan,
Yes.
right? And you probably were too. So, well, thanks all for being here. I appreciate it very much. We want to get into specifics a little bit later, but I think first to start off, let's find out what the League is and what it does, and maybe give us a little history of it. I know it because I just wrote an article about it, but for folks joining us either on the radio or on television or on YouTube, tell us what the League is all about.
Well, the League is a nonpartisan organization. It is political, but nonpartisan. We don't take sides. And we've been around 100 years because the article you wrote was all about our centennial. Because Wisconsin was the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, we celebrate a little bit earlier in Wisconsin. So the League was actually formed on February 14th. Is that correct?
Right.
1920. So we have another big centennial coming up next year. So two centennials back to back.
Yes. And I have to say that you guys did a celebration last month to celebrate the ratification of the 19th Amendment, and Wisconsin being the first state to do so. And it was held at the Howard, and that was the first time I'd been in there. What a beautiful place, how lovely, and it was just a great celebration. You guys did a good job putting that together, and I think a fine time was had by all.
I think so too. It was especially nice to have Jessie Jack Hooper come back.
Yes.
Seen as how she's 150 years older, so
And
she
she
was
looked
looking
well.
very good.
She looked well for her age.
Yes.
We should probably, for people who don't understand that, we should probably explain that there is a retired university professor by the name of Dr. Helen Bannon, and she probably about 12 or 13 years ago started impersonating Jessie Jack Hooper. I knew I was going to screw something up. Jessie Jack Hooper, who was married to an attorney here in the area. She was very instrumental. She helped found the local league. She helped to get the 19th Amendment ratified. She did a lot of things, right?
She was amazing. She did
Yes.
an awfully lot of things. She also was one of the founders of our state league, which started the same year that Oshkosh's league did. So.
And, you know, we should make a point here because a lot of people might say, you know, it's the Winnebago chapter. But you guys don't call it chapters, right?
No, we call it leagues.
Okay.
Each city or county has its own league.
Okay, all right. And I know that Neenah Menasha used to have a league.
They did.
Now
Oshkosh used to be separate. So it used to be the League of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh League and the Neenah Menasha League. In 2009, they merged. So now it's the League of Winnebago County, so we cover the whole league.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't all that terribly long ago because when I was a newspaper reporter and I covered the Neenah Menasha area, you know, I would hook up with some of the people from the league over there, down there, up there, wherever, over there. And so I knew that it hadn't been all that terribly long ago. What was the reason for joining the two leagues?
Size.
Yeah, optimum size. Their membership was getting smaller, but they were determined to remain part of the League of Women Voters because of why we're all members.
Right, right.
You know that.
Yep. So what really are you all about? You said that you're nonpartisan, but it's a very democratic with the small d.
Yes. The important distinction.
Yes, that is an important distinction. You know, tell a little bit about what, as a league, you women do. And by the way, men can join too, I guess, if they want to.
League is open to everyone.
Right.
The 16 years and older.
Right.
And what we do is we basically have two main things we do. We like to educate and inform. We want people to know who they're voting for, why they're voting for that candidate, what the issues are, what they're voting on those issues for. Basically just to be an informed voter. And this all goes back to Jesse Jack Hooper, who wanted to be sure that when women first got the vote, that they were at least as knowledgeable about the issues as the men had been. So her mantra was kind of, we're going to show the men how to be educated about this. And we've been doing a pretty good job. Our membership, though, is probably about 20% male in our local league. Like I said, we're open to everyone. We also do advocacy. We like to make sure people are registered to vote. Or know how to register to vote. We like to help them be sure they have the proper ID. So we work with that a lot before elections. And we advocate for positions. And I'm going to let Kathy talk a little bit about the studies and positions that we have. She's had a lot more experience with that than I have. Kathy's actually been a member of our league for 50 years.
Wow.
I'm really not that old.
No, she was only 10 when she started.
I was 10 when I started. Well, the league's passion is voting rights. You know, if there's anything that we care about, we want to ensure that all eligible voters are able to vote with no barriers. I would say that's our underlying passion. And we also want voters to have information so that they can vote and will vote. And we want them to vote. We want a person to want to vote, not just be able to.
Right, right.
Right. And so we've taken, as a local league, a state league, a national league, we've taken any number of positions over the years after study on a multitude of issues. So we are not a single issue organization. We're not just voting rights. Environment, transportation,
Wow.
Fair maps, I mean, lots of things. Healthcare. Incredible number of things. So I've lost my train of thought.
Well, you were talking about it's not just about voting rights and things like that.
Oh, yeah. But as Margie mentioned, we advocate for these positions. Once we've taken a position, which is done by consensus, it's a membership thing. The membership decides, this is what we think. Based on
we research something, we study it, and then we all...
This is our position, and then we go out and advocate for it.
Okay.
And this could be any number of things. We locally here, not recently, but in the last, say, 10 years, we studied the city park system, took a very careful position, wrote a report on that. Subsequently, many of the suggestions that we made have been implemented by the Parks Board and the Parks Department because they were good, reasonable suggestions.
Sure.
For improvement. County Health Department, we advocated to merge the city and county health departments, and
that happened.
And it happened.
Yep.
Yes. And we undertook a poverty study in 2013, which really pulled data together. We didn't invent any wheels, but we pulled data together in such a way that we attracted a huge group to our presentation of agencies and individuals. And agencies then took some of that data and said, whoa, the university area is a poverty desert. We've got to do something. So other people took steps to address issues that we raised because we created awareness.
Sure, sure. So it's interesting, and I want to play devil's advocate here because there might be someone out there thinking what I'm thinking as well. So you take positions on certain issues after you've studied them and come to a consensus on it, but you don't take a position, and those issues can be political, but you don't take a position on candidates. So why one and not the other?
Well, a position, we've studied that position from all sides and have all agreed. And we can have local consensus on something and it becomes a local issue.
Okay.
We can also pass that on to the state, and the entire state can study it and gain consensus, and then it becomes a state position. And then all the states can turn things into national, and we get national positions. So we have all these different positions to refer back to when we have an issue that we want to see what our consensus on a position was.
The other thing is issues are not, they don't have to be, they should not be Democratic issues and positions or Republican issues or positions or Green Party issues and positions. They should just be a good public policy position.
Gotcha.
That some people from each party could support. And some people from each party do support these positions.
Yep. Okay,
so,
great. So, Kathy, you had said, that it's a voting without barriers kind of thing. So did you guys study and take a position on the having to have a voter ID in Wisconsin?
Oh, very much so. And our State League of Women Voters filed a lawsuit which resulted in an injunction for a few years.
To stop it.
To stop it. Until I think finally the state Supreme Court
they made a ruling on it.
Ruled on it.
Yeah. I'm a poll worker, and it's amazing to see the confusion that people come to the polls with. Some actually come to the poll and don't know that they need NID, which...
Still?
Yeah.
We try really hard,
it's
but
not
we can't
a lot.
reach everyone.
It's not a lot, but it is a few. But then they're very confused about what they need or what will be accepted as a state ID if they don't have the true state ID or a driver's license. I've had to send people home to get utility bills or whatever, and I mean it gets to be kind of sticky, really, and some people get pretty mad. Yeah. I had a woman who was a driver for a company, and she has to make deliveries in a certain time frame, but she took time out to vote, and she got very upset with me because she didn't have the appropriate ID, and she plunked down all of her other stuff. And I said, I'm sorry.
This is a barrier. This is what we don't want to see.
Right. But it really, I think, was a barrier for elderly people and those who come from a lower economic group, and that was designed, I think, to be that way, to keep certain groups of people from being able to go to the polls and vote.
We think so too.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. And that's why we try to mitigate some of the rulings from the past few years that made it more difficult for everyone, or from so many, and get out there and educate ahead of time and help people know what they need for an ID. I'm not a poll worker, I'm a poll observer, which means that, and I'm sure you know this, but I kind of sit behind everybody and just kind of watch and be quiet for a whole day. I can do it. but that's been very interesting because not all poll workers are educated about all the options either or choose to share it. So there have been times when, as an observer for the league, I have actually followed somebody out of the building to let them know that if they had a fishing license with their correct address on it, that could be accepted. That was one example. And of course, afterwards, I always think, gee, I hope they voted the way I do. But it doesn't matter because we're there to educate and inform everyone. You had asked before about the candidates and why we want all candidates to be available to the voters. We want them to know, we want the voters to know where every candidate stands. All of our questions are very carefully worded to be as neutral as possible. I'm sure you've gotten some of those phone surveys where they ask you, like, it's the equivalent of, have you stopped beating your wife? Answer yes or no. And I just end up hanging up on them going, this is stupid. You can't answer that question. It's based on a lie. Well, we don't want to do anything like that during our forums. So we're very careful to have questions that are neutral, but we want everyone who's running for that office, and sometimes there's 14. Did you know once the city council had 14 people run for council? And so we want everyone to have the equal chance to share their information with the public. So although we don't back any particular candidate, we do want to give everyone the opportunity. Now, if there's 14 people and 3 can't make it, we will go ahead and go through with the forum. But we do our best to make sure that as many people, as many candidates as possible have a chance to share.
Sure. Susan, since you've been on the board also, I want to bring you into this, talking about the same sort of thing, meaning no disrespect to the league, but I have felt for years, I get what you're trying to do and keep it very neutral and unbiased, but when certain accusations are made by one candidate toward another and they are not able to respond to that, and the one I'm thinking of came from about 2 years ago, and it was when one of the candidates, came out and said, it was Mark Showers, and he came out and said that the mayor and the city council were hiding money. And Steve Cummings, the mayor, he didn't have the opportunity to even defend himself in the setting the way you guys have it set up. And that, to me, seems a little unfair.
So this was at a forum?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, we heard that complaint and we've taken it to heart.
Yes.
I think in the last forum or last couple, we've given people an opportunity to rebut at the end.
Okay.
If there's anything that they
that
that was said that was they felt was wrong.
Yeah.
And we really do not. I mean this candidate was criticizing the entire city council, but had he criticized one person on that council, we would have caught him up short because that's a personal attack, and the moderator does not tolerate personal attacks.
Yeah, it was awful, and so I gave Steve an opportunity on this show to defend himself and other council members to defend themselves.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
I took Mark Showers to task big time over that. I think it probably has been one of the shows that's gotten the most hits over the years, as a matter of fact. So I'm proud of that.
Very good.
But, you can't just go around leveling accusations like that without some kind of repercussion somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad to hear that you guys have, looked at that and been open to making change. So how long have you been a member of
I was trying to think. I'm thinking about 5 years. Yeah, about 5 years.
Okay.
So I'm a much newer member than either Marty or Kathy.
And what prompted you to get involved, Susan?
Well, I retired. That was
Okay.
the first step. And around the same time I retired, I began to become very, very concerned about the political situation around the state, around the country. And I had a friend who was a league member, Cynthia, who said, why don't you try it? And it seems like it has been just the perfect modality for getting involved in issues that I really care about. So that's why it just by retirement and then the political situation just sort of came together like this for me. And it
Yeah,
was
they dovetailed.
time
and
to
it
do
was a
something. Yeah.
Perfect answer for you. Yeah, that's great. So when someone joins, as Susan did, and as I'm going to, I haven't for all these years, and I'm not really sure why. You know, I've thought about that, and I've thought, why haven't you joined? But I guess I really didn't know that much about what you guys all did. Having interviewed you, Margie, for the article that I wrote, I thought, you know what, I think that this is an organization that I
Could be a good fit.
should be a member of. Not could be a member of, but should be a member of. And so I will be joining this month. July is when you guys
thank you.
start
Excellent.
your annual
Super.
thing.
It
So I will
is.
be joining.
And I have some excellent news for you on that front. I don't know if it's excellent news for you, but it was for us. We have it, it's not rolled out yet, but it's really, 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 really close. We've never been able to accept credit cards through the website before for dues.
Okay.
But within the next week or so, we will be able to do so. So
Okay.
that's kind of exciting news for us because otherwise people had to mail a check, and you know nobody likes to write out checks and mail them and stuff anymore apparently because everybody was complaining. So so now we have that. We're moving into this new century.
You're getting into the 21st
I know it's our
century.
centennial, but we decided to go for it anyway.
Well, that's a nice first step for your centennial.
Is it though?
Yep, it
Every
is.
100 years we're going to do something really drastic like this.
So should I wait? It'll be this month yet. You
Yes.
said in the next week or
It's
so.
totally up to you, dear. Whatever works
Okay,
for you.
All right. I'd rather join online.
We-
I'm
we
one
will-
of these people
we
who
will
doesn't
take
like writing
cash,
a check.
checks, or credit cards. We're not fussy.
All right.
We're equal opportunity for all.
There we go. That's what I like. So someone can join by going to your website, which I know we've been putting it up throughout the show so far. And there it would give the address and so forth of where to mail a check, but in another couple of weeks. And we're taping this on Thursday, July 11th. So somewhere around the latter part of July, they will be taking credit cards or debit cards. What do they get when they join besides membership?
Besides getting to talk to us all the time. Membership can be as much or as little as you want it to be. We have members that are purely financial supporters. That's all they do is pay dues. We have members that work 24/7 for voter registration or for something, whatever thing interests them on that. And on that form, there's also a questionnaire, that very short one that says, what are you interested in? Because there's several different ways that you can serve the league if you so choose. It's not mandatory, it's just there.
Sure.
We also have sort of a different fee structure for our dues. So maybe I can address that a little
Sure,
bit.
go right ahead.
We have three different things that are on there. One says sustainable memberships. And what a sustainable membership is I spoke before about state and national. Well, our local league wanted to keep dues as reasonable as possible so that as many people as possible could join. So we did two things. We haven't raised them from $50 a year for, well,
Several years.
many years since I've been a member, frankly. We also have a limited income, and that's people self-identify for that. If somebody wishes to join and wants to do it as a limited, they can just join for $25.
So they don't have to show proof.
No.
There's
that
no
they're
proof,
limited
there's no
income.
nothing. No,
Okay.
totally self-identified.
Okay.
But if somebody wants to go the other way, we have what we call a sustainable membership. And what that means is that because we're a local league, we need a little bit of operating funds locally, not much. But we do pay dues to the state for every one of our local members, and we pay dues to national for every one of our local members. So what a sustainable membership does is it covers the amount that we pay to both state and national for each member. And with this comes, well, it used to be an actual newsletter, but now it's email, of course. But you get a lot of information, which is very useful information. But we figure the sustainable memberships that people purchase or additional donations that we get covers the the limited income and the normal, just what we call our dues. So it all kind of balances out.
Sure.
It basically boils down to people who can afford to do more do. And some people, I mean, I'm kind of one of them. I give a lot of time. I don't give a ton of money, but I give a lot of time. Well, sometimes
that's worth
people have
something.
more time than money.
That's worth
so
something.
People who have more money than time, please feel free. No
Time,
problem.
talent, and money.
Well, let's
You know?
talk about why league membership is important. I mean, why bother joining?
Yeah.
Because it's an easy way to follow important policy issues and to get information. Every month, we've got a good speaker on an important policy topic, and it gives those of us that come are able to ask questions of this speaker, and we find out about issues and what's going on in the local schools, county, city, state, that we really didn't know about. And so,
And you can get a nice luncheon if you
well, you
wish
have to pay for your own
Well,
lunch.
right. I was just going to say, if you wish to do so.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, but the topics are timely and it raises awareness.
Sure. Give us a sense, either Susan or Kathy, of what some of the topics have been in the past, because they're wide-ranging and they're important.
Oh, yeah.
Our state vice president spoke about the Foxconn water diversion. The State League of Women Voters, again, filed a lawsuit contesting the diversion of Lake Michigan water for Foxconn. They're just right off the edge.
Yeah, yeah.
Alleging that it was a violation of the compact, the Great Lakes Compact. The administrative judge did rule against our position, and at this point, I don't know what the next outcome is, but she spoke about that. We had a standing room only
Okay.
crowd to hear about that.
We had somebody who had been on the border on Christmas Day, and they came in and told us what it was like, and basically gave us a very sad but accurate view of what's happening in camps for refugees. And they have created a Facebook page. What we do after somebody gives us a presentation too, we put up if they've used a PowerPoint, we put that on our website. So you can go back and look at some of the issues that we've had in the last year or the last, however many years.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to me that we've sort of been identifying things just before they become an issue. So a lot of that too, though, is if it's something local, we try to bring in somebody from the city or county or wherever it's from and give us the information as early as we can get it so that we can have our members be more aware of it. And for example, we had 2 programs last summer on the potential jail expansion, and we wanted to be fair and balanced, so we heard from the sheriff one month, and we heard from someone who was he was Esther, I believe he came from that group. And
From Esther?
Esther,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
And-
an ecumenical group in the area that is, it's ecumenical, but it is non-denominational. You get people from all denominations and
Right, and they're interested in social justice
Yes.
issues and
absolutely.
Exactly.
some of the
yeah.
same important policies that
Yeah.
we are interested
Yeah.
in.
We also had one on the sex trafficking. Very interesting.
Yep. And I know Tracy Robertson from Fit Oshkosh has been on your panel of speakers in the past. So I'm personally looking forward to joining and seeing what you guys have going on and seeing how I can fit in and how I can help, with your mission and your vision, besides doing something like this. So when they join then, they get what? Do they get something in the mail? Do they get something by email?
We have a member that contacts them and go out to.
Might
We
have
try not to
coffee.
burden people with paper and
Sure.
piles of things, and they do get this e-newsletter every month.
Yep.
And an invitation to go to lunch or go out for coffee. And some choose not to. They just say, I'm working and I don't need to go. But
We
So
like
it's-
to offer the
Yeah.
potential for them to learn more about League directly right away. And it also gives us a chance to get to know them and find out where their interests lie and where their strengths may be.
Sure.
So that if something happens to our newsletter editor, we know that you used to edit a newsletter. That sort of thing. I'm just
Okay.
saying. So far, she's healthy, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Okay. Well, I'm always available for help if she needs. So I want to talk about a couple of policy issues and things that are of, I think, the utmost importance to voters in this state, and that has to do with, gerrymandering and redistricting, and it ties in with the census and all these things that you hear about in the news. They all tie together in one way or another, and it's kind of interesting how they all fit. It's like a big, massive puzzle that all the pieces fit, sometimes not as well as they should. So, Margie, you, I think, you and Susan both want to talk about the redistricting issue, right?
Well, I'm going to let Susan really do that because she's
Okay.
our resident expert on
Okay.
that.
No,
All right,
well,
take it away.
kind of a mini expert, I guess. So redistricting. The United States Constitution requires that every state redistrict every 10 years after the census. And when we talk, and so when the census obviously measures the shifts in population, and when those shifts in the population of a state have been identified, then the state is expected to redraw the districts of the voting districts. And those particular districts would be the Congressional House of Representatives, State Senate, State Assembly. So, for example, I'm in the 6th Congressional District. Glenn Glofman is my representative. My state senator is Dan Fain, because I'm in Senate District 18, and my state assembly district is 53 with Michael Schroll. So these are the districts we're talking about, because there are federal and state requirements for redistricting. And one of the federal requirements is equal population. So as the population shifts over that 10-year period, then these districts have to do a shift in their boundaries as well in order to maintain that equal population. So there are some other things that have to be considered in the redistricting process. One is they have to take into account communities of interest. And that's kind of a tricky one because you don't want to pack them and you don't want to crack them. And
Right.
We'll talk a little bit about that. But so the idea is you don't go in and intentionally split up a community of interest, nor do you try to pack them all together, but you have to be very attuned to that. And it is also required that you follow the Voting Rights Act that was passed in the mid-60s. So those are the federal requirements. Wisconsin has a couple as well. One is that our districts need to be compact. We don't want lots of little appendages and bumps and clumps, as much as possible. A compact district. And they must be contiguous. You don't want part of one district in the northern part of the state with the other part of it down near Mequon. They need to be together. They need to be bounded by precinct, town, wards, whenever possible. And something new that I learned was 3 assembly districts within one Senate district. I did not know that.
Interesting.
But I found that interesting. So when you get these districts and you put them on an outline of the state of Wisconsin, you have what we call voting maps. So you maybe have heard people talk about or seen signs that talk about fair voting maps. And that's what we're talking about, that we want these districts to be fair.
What do you mean by fair, Susan?
By fair, I mean that they are not gerrymandered.
And let's
Well,
face
that
it,
doesn't it mean competitive?
Oh, yeah. Be getting into competitive, absolutely.
They're not guaranteed to be Republican or guaranteed to be Democratic, that there's a possibility that someone from either party could win.
Right.
in
Would have an
election.
equal chance of winning
Having
within
it.
there.
Right.
but we all know
good
that
chance.
Scott Walker, when he was the governor, he and some Republicans did a lot of gerrymandering, and it was all leaned toward getting Republicans elected.
They certainly did use the 2010 census to their advantage.
Yes. Well, and now we've got so many things up in the air about the next census, the 2020 census, that Lord only knows how that's going to turn out. I mean, that was just in the news today, Thursday, July 11th. Number 45 at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has, you know, he had an awful lot to say about the census. So it's interesting to see how it'll be interesting to see how
Okay, it'll
that's,
probably be different tomorrow.
well, that could be. It could be different by the time we all get home tonight. Who
As I
knows?
say, yeah.
But it's going to be interesting how the census goes out to the public and what it does after that to voting districts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
What are some of the effects of
gerrymandering. Gerrymandering effects. Well, I think the most important effect is that it means the political party is controlling the election, not the voters.
Yeah.
Because the political party draws the maps. And so if they are, I mentioned packing and cracking. They do this by packing and cracking. Packing means you take as many members of your opposing party and put them into one district, pack them all in there, and that district will go to the opposing party, but it opens up the surrounding districts to go for your party. And then the opposite is cracking. If you've got little groups of the opposing party in certain districts, you can go in and you can crack them. You can break them up and keep that district for the majority party. So once that happens, you have got the political party who is in control essentially setting up these districts in such a way that they can guarantee their reelection for the next 10 years.
Sure.
And so we've got some numbers to show that's what's been happening here. So if that's happening, there's no way for the voters to hold anybody accountable. Why go to a forum? Why have
vote?
interviews? Yeah, and that's
Why
what
vote?
I'm getting to. Why vote? If I am a Democrat living in a Republican district, why vote? And if I'm a Democrat living in a Republican district and I'm thinking about maybe running for office, why run for office? I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
And so you find voter apathy. You find these non-competitive elections. We had, where did I see this? Only 38 of the 99 assembly districts offered a major party candidate in the last election.
Wow.
So they're not even running in these gerrymandered districts. And why would they?
Yeah.
It takes money and time and effort.
Yeah.
And it's hopeless.
Well, so what's the solution to this, Susan?
Well, we have, right now, first of all, we have a Democratic governor. So we probably will not repeat what happened in the last redistricting, because we had all three parts of the state government were Republican. We now have a divided. So it is very unlikely that Governor Evers will sign off on a redistricting plan that is so heavily biased in favor of the Republicans, even though the legislature is still Republican.
Well, that said, we have a governor, yes, he's a Democrat, but he's also got his hands tied to a certain degree,
That's
too.
right. That's right.
Because of all the crap that happened just before, Scott Walker left office and Evers came into office. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I believe that a court of appeals or whatever has upheld the Republicans'
correct, yes.
dirty politics.
That's right.
At the state level, we were a part of that. We were one of the
Yes.
plaintiffs, and we did lose that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't know how anything's going to turn out.
No.
I mean, when I ask what a solution might be, I think we're hopeful
Yes, we
about
do have
that.
bills.
We have a bill that would do what? If
Well-
the legislature would vote for it.
Well, that's a big if.
I know.
But we do have bills because of the Supreme Court case. I don't think a final decision has been made, but certainly the early indications are that we're not going to pursue that through the courts. So they're looking at a legislative solution. So we have had two bills submitted. Representative Vinings has submitted the House bill, which is House Bill 303, and it's comparable to Senate Bill 288, which was submitted by Senator Hansen from Green Bay. These are nonpartisan redistricting bills. They are based on the Iowa model, and the Iowa model is considered to be the best one in the country. And what they do is they have the Legislative Reference Bureau actually draws the lines, draws the districts, and that's a nonpartisan committee. And it has some oversight by members picked by the two parties, the House leader and the Senate leader in the state, and the minority leaders each pick someone to be on a committee. So we got 4 members on this committee, and then they select a 5th one to be chair. And they have some oversight over what the Legislative Reference Bureau does. So we do have some legislative involvement. They prepare a map. It's submitted to the legislature. If the legislature does not approve it, they are expected to give feedback as specifically why and what needs to be changed. And they can do that 3 times. If they don't get approval after the 3rd time, somebody's going to sue. But they can't do it more than 3 times.
Yeah.
Now, in Iowa, they put this plan in place in the mid-'80s. They have never had a 3rd-time rejection and never had a lawsuit. So if we could get something similar, I don't know that our results will be exactly the same as theirs, but it certainly would be much, much better than what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
Where the Republicans were able to simply guarantee their positions for 10 years.
Sure, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we'll have to see how that all pans out.
Yeah.
A couple of you ladies have mentioned voter apathy, and that's on my list of things to talk about. You know, I don't care what the election is for. There just don't seem to be enough people going to the polls. And I'm sure that being that you're members of the League of Women Voters, this bothers you guys too, but it bothers me because other countries, you'll see people standing in line sometimes for days, but hours for sure, sometimes days, in all kinds of weather, just to be able to vote. And they have fought long and hard for that right, and by God, they're going to exercise their right. And yet, people in this country, long before any of us were around, were fighting the fight too for women to vote. And men always had the ability to vote, and yet we have a luxury of voting in a number of different ways. We can go to the polls, we can vote early voting, we can vote by absentee ballot. In these other countries, they're standing in line for days or hours, and that's the only way they have to vote. And yet we've got it so easy here, and we've got lazy, apathetic people in this country who will not get off their duffs and do something, one way or the other, to vote and to make their voice heard. And I've known a couple, and it drives me crazy. So how do we change this? I mean, is there an answer to this? I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where 100% of registered voters go and vote, or 100% of the population who are of voting age can go and vote. But how do we get the voting numbers up? How do we get them higher? Because it's pathetic.
Well,
I wish I knew the answer to that.
Yes. Well, people say to each one of us, well, I don't know enough to vote. I just don't know enough about the candidate. I don't have perfect information about the candidates.
Well, where have they been? Because a lot of it's out there.
Well,
They just need to watch our forum.
yes, they
And
do.
this show.
And this show.
This show, go to YouTube, watch various forums, go to the candidate websites, and
And
I don't know
use
how-
their
I don't know
brain
how
to think it
someone-
all through together.
yes,
Yeah.
Because they're
And-
going to get a lot of different answers that way.
right.
Yeah, and
But I think it seems to me basically, is there a candidate or a political party that represents your values?
And
Each one of us would have a little bit different values, and if there is the details about what that person or party represents is less important than this is somebody that you should be supporting. You should go vote.
And my concern is that so many people are getting their information from things like Facebook
Yes.
and Twitter, and it's much of it is just garbage. It's not
Right.
true. We all know that, and so somehow I think we need to have a way of confronting that and getting accurate information out. And I just went to a talk by Tony Palmieri here at the university about the media. And what he was pointing out, and I had not thought of it, he was pointing out that what we hear about on the media are the polls. Why aren't the media being better at telling us what these positions are and what the implications of them are? So one of the things we can do, I think, is start to contact media and telling them what we want from them and what do we want on our television stations, what do we want in our newspapers.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about the Facebook. That drives me crazy. If anybody has any ideas, I don't know. But
Well,
how do you confront that? It's
Well, I think, and we're probably not ever going to see it because it would take our elected officials to vote on it, but we need very strict voter campaign reform. And I'm just not
yes.
talking about finance reform. I'm talking about reform all across the board. Some of the ads that are run by people who, you know, you can have candidate A, and yet somebody else is going to put out ads either for or against candidate A, and they don't even necessarily have anyone in candidate A's camp. You know, they're just third-party groups out there that are putting ads out on television, and they all have little hints of truth to them, but most of it's a bunch of BS. The ones that drove me crazy were the ones when Scott Walker was running and they said, oh, you know, he's the only one to ever have balanced a budget. Well, that's a bunch of BS. We have a constitution in Wisconsin that says that we have to have a balanced budget. So we always have a balanced budget. It's a question of how it's getting balanced, not whether or not it's balanced. And, you know, see, I don't like lies being told.
Right.
You know, and we need to get to the heart of that. And we need to stop allowing people like the Koch brothers and some of these other companies just give endless amounts of money for these ads and this kind of
finance
stuff.
reform is
Yeah,
part
it's
of it.
Repealing Citizens United would
Yes.
certainly help a lot.
Tell people what that group is. Or
That was
Go
a
for it.
Supreme Court decision
Citizens United.
that basically said corporations are people.
Yeah, and they're
And,
not.
and they can give unlimited amounts of money.
Yeah,
In essence, that's what it said.
right.
So there really effectively are no more limits
And
on how much
that's-
money can be spent
Yeah.
in anyone's campaign.
And that's what I'm talking about, like the Koch brothers. I mean, it has to stop. You
Well,
know,
and that's where we got our super PACs, and that's what a lot of backing these ads is, and that's how Governor Walker was able to get such a war chest of campaign donations when he was running for president.
Well, both parties use super PACs.
Everybody does.
yeah, yeah.
It's a sad thing.
Yeah, but I just, you know, I'm kind of at a loss at times as to how to tell someone, you know, they'll say, well, what's the point of voting? And the time I'm really kind of lacking an answer is during a presidential election, because it does not seem anyway that the individual vote counts. It's what happens with the Electoral College. I don't understand the Electoral College. All I know is it doesn't seem like it's a necessary thing
It's antiquated.
anymore.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
definitely antiquated
But
at this
how
point.
it actually works, I don't know. But it doesn't seem to work the way it should work or the way it used to work. And so I don't know how to answer people. I mean, I'm still going to vote in every election, but I don't know how to say to someone, you know, I understand the Electoral College is really, you know, picking the candidates here and picking the winners.
Well, you know,
Well, but the
Cheryl,
Electoral College outcome is based on people voting in Wisconsin. So if a majority of people, if you're talking about the president, vote for a Republican in Wisconsin, then our Electoral College votes go to the Republican. Winner take all.
it depends on what districts they're in, though, because that's gerrymandered too.
And there we go
No, I'm
back
talking
to
about
that
the
again.
president. I'm talking about the
presidential
president. I'm talking about the
election,
president. And some states do apportion their Electoral College
Okay.
votes. But in essence, people that live in Wisconsin, we have a bigger responsibility, along with what, 5 or 6 other so-called swing states, than any other state in the union. Our vote counts more because the Electoral College, if you're talking about that, outcome for the president comes down to how does the Electoral College vote go in these 5 or 6 or swing states. Wisconsin is one of them.
Yeah.
So here, our vote counts. And
Well,
if
that is
your
good to
vote
know.
counts, whether or not your candidate succeeds. And how many times have there been locally, forget about the president, close elections where there were 5 votes difference,
Yeah. Yeah.
3 votes difference? In county board races, you know, write-in candidates win
Yeah.
because there's no candidates.
Yeah. Yeah. The county board, nobody really seems to run for county board anymore. Very seldom.
But I mean, my point is just that
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It might seem like your vote doesn't count, but it certainly does.
You know what I go back to is when I was in college, I took a logic class, and the only thing I got out of it, I only have one thing I remember from it, is that if I walk across the grass, it doesn't matter, because if I'm the only one that's walking across that portion of grass, I won't kill the grass. If everybody's walking across that portion of grass, the grass is going to die anyway. So whether I do it or not, is it going to matter? So am I going to pass that on to voting and figure it doesn't matter if I vote or not? Well, no, because that's not a logical conclusion for voting, because I tell everyone that is the only voice you've got. In government, that is your loudest voice.
Yes.
Go vote. Take everybody with you to go vote. The thing that we have on our side, even in a gerrymandered state like this, is quantity. We have to get as many people as we possibly can to go to the polls and vote. And of course, what we try to do is make sure that they know who they're voting for and why, what their issues are. So we work on that all the time, constantly, all year long, you know. But we have to encourage people to actually go to the polls.
Yeah. And the local elections are sometimes even more important because it's where we have the greatest voice, it seems. And these are things that directly affect our pocketbooks and, you know, our lives. So, you know, people who say, oh, it's just a city council election or a county board election or a school board, no, those are things that really, really matter.
I think they're just too lazy to study the issue.
Yeah.
If they're saying they don't want to vote uninformed, then get informed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not brain science.
And my point is, you don't have to know everything there is to know about a candidate.
Right.
No.
You can like something, one thing about a candidate,
Yeah.
or about a political party, or about an issue, and
about an issue,
use that as the reason to vote.
Yeah. We're down to probably about 7 or 8 minutes. Let's see. We've covered so many things here. Upcoming projects, studies, or events. What issues are you guys working on right now?
We're in the planning stages of how to run for office, candidate
Okay.
workshops. We do this on the off year in fall. And Frankie Mingling actually has done a very nice job of one that's held here in Oshkosh. But we want to reach out to other communities in Winnebago County, smaller communities, and figure out different ways of offering this information to try to get more candidates to run for office. So that's one thing in the agenda.
And younger candidates too, because it's really important. I mean, it's not sustainable to only elect old people. You know, you really need some youth in there. And by youth is anybody younger than me, so you know, 27 on down. But we really want to get this out there to everyone, because we found that people are not running because they don't even know how to pull papers, or they don't even know what that term means. So it's an education process so that people can feel comfortable. And I know you've been through the process. You know what it's like. We've observed it. We know what it's like. But we found out there are some millennials that thought it would be really great to run for office, and they had not a clue. And you know what? They couldn't find the answer online, so they gave up. So we want to make this a broader way, but we'll tape it and put it online too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
sure.
it'll be
Yeah.
more available to more people.
Well, I know many, many years ago, I believe you guys ran this or sponsored it. It was held at the Chamber of Commerce. And I don't know if, was that you guys?
Yeah, we cooperated with the
Okay,
chamber.
yep. And so I know Mark Harris, our county executive, was, he was in one of the same little forums or seminars that I was. And I thought you guys did a nice job. And Bill Wingren actually came to talk. And boy, that's one of the few times you'll get Bill Wingren out in a little situation like that. I had to pull teeth to get him to even come on this show one time. Oh, I like the show, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I finally got him to do it. So that was a good thing. But I enjoyed what you guys put forth. So I think it is necessary. Anything else that you guys are working on?
Well, we're studying a couple of, not studying, we're looking at a couple of things continually. One is that from a national and state level as well as locally, we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, because who isn't this year, right? But we did realize that our socioeconomic, racial, virtually any diversity criteria that you want to use, we were pretty single, all one path there. And so we are actively trying to make sure that when I emphasize everyone is able to join, that doesn't just mean men. Of course it means men, but it also means anyone who's interested in politics and wanting to learn more, change the path, or help inform people, or help them get registered. We want them, and we want to help them feel included. Another thing that we're working on locally is a green code study, just to see if our and this is kind of
Green building codes?
Yeah, green building codes. This is kind of a cross purpose for me, because when the league is done with it, I'll pass it on to the sustainability board, of course, but we'll also share it with, which would cover Oshkosh, but we'll also share it with Neenah and Menasha, just to make sure that we're being as sustainable as we can in our building codes throughout the whole county. Because let's face it, that's part of climate change at this point too.
Sure.
And believe it or not, that's going to be an issue this year.
And believe it or not, climate change does exist. Anything else, just real quickly?
Yeah. Can I just put a plug in for the Assembly bill and the Senate bill? Asking your listeners and your viewers to please contact your state senator and state assembly representative and ask them to support Assembly Bill 303 and Senate Bill 288, and ask for public hearings on these bills.
Okay.
I think it would be a good idea to see what the voters have to say about it.
All right. Very good. Ladies, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it very much, and I think we got a lot of good information out.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
inviting us. Yes.
That will do it for us. I just want to remind folks that if you're out there and you have maybe 4 hours a month that you'd like to spend doing something fun and educational, as this show always is, at least we try to make it educational and enlightening, feel free to give me a contact, a call or an email. My email address is up there right now. We're always looking for volunteers. You can also call me at 920-209-7387. But we are always looking for volunteers. We will train you. You can come in with zero experience, and I think all of our current crew will attest to the fact that it's a lot of fun, and they enjoy spending a couple hours twice a month with us. So looking forward to hearing from folks. And again, thanks to the guests, thanks to our crew, and thanks to you. We will see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.